In the endless silence of space, a human traveler stopped. Through the static of his ship, he heard something impossible. Not a signal, not a machine. It was a cry, a desperate cry. Small voices, trembling, broken, begging for help. They were not human voices. They were alien children. No one else could hear them. No one else answered. But why him? Why now? And what danger could make a group of little alien girls cry out into the void, reaching for a stranger across the stars? The human didn't know it yet, but answering that cry would change everything. The stars were calm, and the human's small ship drifted quietly between them. He had traveled alone for weeks, with only the soft hum of engines to remind him that the ship was alive. Then, without warning, the silence broke. It was not the sound of static or machinery. It was something else, something that should not have been possible. The human leaned closer to the console. At first, he thought it was just another transmission echoing through the deep. But when he listened again, his heart slowed. The sound was not mechanical. It was not coded. It was a voice. No several voices. They were soft, trembling, filled with fear and sadness. He turned up the signal. The voices became clearer, though broken by distance. They were small voices, fragile, the kind of voices that belonged to children. Please, someone, help us. The words were faint, yet they carried across the emptiness of space. The human sat frozen, unsure if his mind was playing tricks on him. He had heard distress calls before, but never like this. These voices did not sound like warriors or travelers. They sounded like little ones who had lost everything. No starship should have been able to carry such a fragile cry so far, and yet here it was, reaching only him. He checked the frequencies, scanning again and again. No one else was answering. Not a single other ship had responded. It was as if the message was meant only for him. The human's hands rested on the controls. He could ignore it. He could keep moving, leave the sound behind, and pretend he had heard nothing. That would be the easy choice. But something in those voices held him still. There was a weight to their plea, a sorrow that pierced even the cold walls of his lonely cabin. He whispered to himself, though no one could hear, "Who are you? Why are you calling me?" The signal returned, this time softer, as though fading. The voices cracked like they were struggling to speak. He caught fragments, alone. "No one left, please. Help." A shiver ran through him. He was not a hero. He was not a soldier with fleets to command or riches to spend. He was just one human in a small ship. And yet, somehow, these voices had found him across the stars. He closed his eyes for a moment, listening. The tone of the cry was not just fear. It carried a strange kind of trust, as if whoever spoke believed that someone, somewhere, would hear and answer. They were reaching out to the unknown, hoping the unknown would be kind. Slowly, the human changed course. The ship's engines stirred, and the stars shifted on his screen. He did not know where the path would lead, only that the cry was pulling him closer with every second dot as he followed the signal. Images filled his mind. What if they were truly children? What if they had been left behind, forgotten in some ruined place, waiting for help that would never come? The thought pressed hard against him. He remembered the feeling of being small and powerless, the memory of needing someone to stand beside him. Perhaps that was why the voices had touched him so deeply. The journey grew tense as he traced the broken signal across empty space. The coordinates made little sense. They pointed to a quiet corner of the stars where no busy trade routes passed, and no colonies had been built. It was the kind of place no one cared to visit, which made the question sharper in his mind. What were children doing out there alone? Hours passed, but he did not turn back. The closer he came, the stronger the signal grew. The voices repeated the same plea, as if the speakers had no strength left to say more. Over and over, the message called, fading and then returning, like a heartbeat echoing through the void. Finally, the scanners picked up a faint structure on the edge of a broken moon. It was not a large station. It looked damaged, almost abandoned. Yet from within those cracked walls, the signal pulsed again, weak but alive. The human's breath caught as he slowed the ship. The outpost was in ruin, but through the static, he still heard them, the same fragile voices, whispering for someone to come. His chest tightened. They were real. They were not an illusion. He sat in silence for a long moment, staring at the ruined station. The universe was wide, filled with countless lives. Yet somehow he had been the one to hear this call. He had been the one they reached. As the ship's lights fell across the station, a thought settled deep in his mind. This was no accident. Their cry had been meant for him, whether by chance or something greater. And if he turned away now, their voices would fade into the endless dark forever. He did not know what waited inside that broken outpost. He did not know who these children were, or why their own kind had not saved them. But as he guided his ship closer, one truth filled his heart. He could not ignore them. Not now, not ever. And so, the human prepared to step into the unknown. Following the desperate cry of alien girls who had reached across the stars and found him, the human guided his ship slowly toward the broken station, the faint glow of damaged walls reflecting against the glass. His heart beat faster as he drew near, the cries still whispering through the comms, faint but steady, like a fragile thread pulling him closer. The place looked abandoned, silent, and forgotten, yet those voices proved life remained within. He could almost feel the weight of their fear and hope pressing on him, even before he saw them. The landing was rough, for the platform below was cracked and covered in dust. The ship settled with a soft thud, and for a moment, the silence returned. Only the steady hum of his own craft filled the air. He hesitated, listening. Then, once again, the voices touched his ears, quiet, trembling, and near. It was not just a call for help. It was the sound of children holding on, refusing to let go of life even in a place where everything seemed lost. He stepped out, the air cold and dry, carrying the scent of metal and time. The station was dim, corridors lit by flickering lights. He followed the signal deeper inside, each step echoing softly as though the walls themselves were holding secrets. The cries grew sharper, closer, more real with every turn. And then, finally, he saw them. A small group of alien girls sat huddled in a corner, their large eyes reflecting both fear and wonder. Their clothes were torn, their faces tired, but their presence was undeniable. They were too young to have endured whatever had brought them here. When they saw him, they froze. The air felt heavy, their eyes locked on the strange figure who had answered their cry. For a long moment, no one moved. The humans stood still, not wanting to frighten them more than they already were. The girls whispered to each other in a tongue that carried soft, flowing tones. And though he did not understand the words, he understood the meaning. They were asking each other if he was safe, if he could be trusted, if this was truly the one who had heard them. At last, one of the smallest among them stepped forward. Her voice was thin, almost breaking as she spoke in broken human language. "You hear us?" The human nodded slowly. "Yes, I heard you. I came." Her eyes widened with something that looked like both relief and disbelief. She turned back to the others, whispering quickly, and soon, all of them were looking at him with the same question in their eyes. He could see the hope there, faint but growing. They gathered closer, though still cautious. Their hands clutched each other as if afraid to let go, as if holding one another was the only way to stay strong. The human lowered himself to their level, making sure his voice was calm, gentle, and steady. "You are safe now, tell me. Why are you here alone?" The words opened something in them. Their voices overlapped as they tried to explain, their language mixed and broken. But he began to piece together fragments. They had been brought here and then left behind. There had been fear, confusion, and promises that someone would return for them, but no one ever did. The days had turned into nights, the nights into endless waiting. Until, at last, with no other choice, they had sent out their cry, hoping it might reach someone. Anyone in the stars. The human listened quietly, his chest heavy with their story. They were not just lost. They had been forgotten, left in a place that no one cared to remember. And yet, against all odds, their voices had found him. He felt their eyes studying him, searching for an answer, searching for proof that he would not vanish like the others had. Their trust came slowly, like a fragile flame. One of the older girls finally spoke with clearer words. "We alone, long time. You stay." The question carried more weight than any he had heard in his life. They were not asking for food, or for riches, or for promises of greatness. They were asking if he would remain by their side. If he would not abandon them as all others had, the human's throat tightened. And though he had no grand plan, he gave them the only answer he could. "Yes, I will stay." The reaction was immediate. Their small bodies relaxed just slightly, and their fearful eyes softened with the first glimpse of relief. A quiet sigh of hope passed among them, as though his words had given them strength to breathe again. Yet beneath their fragile calm, the human could sense something deeper, something unspoken. The way they glanced at each other, the way their voices trembled when they shared parts of their story, it was clear there was more. Something they had not yet revealed, something they were hiding, perhaps even from themselves. He did not press them then. It was enough that they trusted him this far. But he knew the truth would come in time, and when it did, it might explain why no one else had come for them, and why their desperate cry had reached only him. The human sat with them for a while, sharing silence, listening to the faint hum of the broken station. Outside, the stars watched silently. Inside, a bond had begun to form, fragile, uncertain, yet powerful enough to change everything that would follow. And as the little alien girls leaned closer to him, their trust slowly growing, he understood one thing with absolute clarity. Whatever secret they carried, whatever dangers lay ahead, their lives had crossed with his for a reason, and nothing in the universe could undo that now. The human remained inside the broken station with the girls, the cold metal walls surrounding them like a cage. Time seemed to move slower there. The little ones clung together, whispering softly in their own tongue, their eyes darting toward him as if checking again and again to be sure he was real. He watched them carefully, not with judgment, but with quiet patience, waiting for them to feel safe enough to speak more. They had shared the simple part of their story that they had been left behind, waiting for help that never came. But he sensed there was more, something heavy pressing on their young shoulders. The way they avoided certain questions, the way they looked at each other before answering, told him they carried a truth that frightened them even more than being alone. The human gently placed a ration pack on the floor, sliding it toward them. At first, they hesitated, their hands trembling. Then one of the older girls encouraged the younger ones, and soon they were eating in silence, their small faces showing both hunger and gratitude. He did not rush them. He knew trust grew slowly, like a seed in the soil, and forcing it too soon could break it. As they finished, one of the girls, the same one who had spoken a little human language before, lifted her gaze. Her voice was quiet, as if she feared the walls might carry her words away. "You want know why we here?" The human nodded, keeping his expression soft. "Only if you want to tell me." Her eyes shifted to the others. They nodded back, uncertain but resigned, as if this moment had finally come. The girl took a shaky breath and whispered words that made his chest grow heavy. "We. Not like others, we. Different inside." The human leaned closer. "Different how?" She placed her small hand on her chest, as if pointing not to her heart, but to something deeper. "Our blood, our gift." The word hung in the air, fragile and mysterious. The other girls lowered their heads, their silence confirming it. The human frowned gently, his mind working to understand. A gift, something within them. The girl continued, speaking slowly, struggling with the words. "Others. Afraid, say we. Dangerous, say we. Must be hidden. But we not ask this, we only. Born." Her voice cracked, and she turned her face away, ashamed of something that was not her fault. The human felt a tightness in his chest. These children had been abandoned not because of what they had done, but because of what they were. A gift inside them, misunderstood, perhaps even feared, had marked them as different. Instead of protecting them, their own kind had left them in the shadows. He thought of how their voices had carried across the stars, reaching him when no one else listened. Perhaps this was part of their gift, the reason their cry had been so strong and so full of emotion. Perhaps what others feared was the very thing that had saved them. "You are not dangerous," the human said firmly, his voice steady but gentle. "You are children. You are alive. And that is enough." The girls looked at him with wide eyes, as if no one had ever spoken such words to them. For the first time, a faint smile appeared on one of their faces, small but real. But the human also understood something else. If their own kind had abandoned them for this gift, Others might seek it for darker reasons. A secret so powerful could make them targets. The thought sent a chill through him. They were too young to understand the weight of what they carried, yet it could shape the fate of entire worlds. He sat back, taking a deep breath, his mind heavy with questions. Why had they been hidden here? Who had decided they must remain forgotten? And most of all, how many others knew of their existence? The older girl, noticing the shadow in his eyes, whispered, "You, afraid of us too?" The human shook his head slowly. "No, I am afraid of what others may do to you." "That is not the same." Her lips trembled, but she nodded, understanding more than her years should have allowed. The others pressed closer to her, their trust in her guiding them to trust him as well. The human stayed with them through the long hours, answering their questions, listening to their broken words, and offering comfort in the simplest ways. Though the station was cold and ruined, though the future was uncertain, a quiet bond was forming. They had revealed their secret, and instead of turning away, he had accepted it still. In the silence between their words, the human felt the weight of what was coming. If he had found them, then others could too, and those others might not come with kindness in their hearts. He knew this was only the beginning. As the girls drifted into uneasy sleep, huddled together for warmth, the human sat awake, staring at the flickering lights of the station. His thoughts circled the same truth again and again. The universe might see them as a burden, or as tools, or as threats, but to him, they were simply children crying out for help. And he had heard them, whatever their gift was, whatever danger it invited. He could not walk away. Not now, not ever. As the silence of space pressed close around the station, the human knew that the moment their secret reached the wider stars, everything would change not only for them, but for him as well. The human spent the next day repairing what little he could inside the broken station. The lights flickered more steadily now, and the air filters hummed faintly, enough to bring a sense of life back into the place. The alien girls followed him quietly, their curious eyes never far from his movements. They had begun to trust him, their fear softening with every hour. But the human could feel a tension that never fully left them. Even as they smiled faintly or whispered among themselves, there was always a shadow in their expressions, a sense that they were waiting for something to go wrong. That evening, as the station rested in uneasy silence, the human heard a faint sound from his ship's console. It was soft at first, almost easy to dismiss as background static. But then the signal sharpened. His heart sank as he recognized it, a trace of scanning waves moving through nearby space. Someone was searching. He quickly adjusted the settings, trying to learn more without alarming the children. The signal was faint but growing stronger. It was not random. Ships were moving closer, sweeping the region with long-range sensors. The human knew instantly this was no coincidence. Someone else had noticed the same cry he had answered. Someone else had followed it here. He turned toward the girls. They were gathered together, humming softly in their language, a fragile song of comfort. He did not want to break their peace, but he knew he had little choice. He crouched beside them, his voice low but steady. "We cannot stay here. Others are coming." The older girl's eyes widened. "Others? From home?" The human hesitated before answering. "Not friends. People who want to find you. People who may not understand." The younger ones clutched at each other nervously, their small voices rising with fear. The human raised his hand gently, calming them. "It is all right. I will keep you safe. But we must move now." The station groaned as he powered up his ship again. The girls climbed aboard hesitantly, their eyes darting to every corner, still unsure of what awaited them. The human secured them as best he could, then guided the ship away from the ruined platform. The stars stretched out before them, cold and endless, but not empty. The scanners showed faint blips growing nearer with every passing moment. He pushed the ship into a hidden course, weaving through fragments of old asteroids and drifting debris, places larger vessels would avoid. The little ones pressed their faces against the small windows, whispering softly as the stars blurred past. For a brief moment, wonder replaced fear in their eyes. But the human knew this wonder would not last. The scanners pulsed again to ships, then 3, spreading their search wider. They were careful, deliberate. Whoever they were, they knew what they were looking for. The older girl leaned close, her voice trembling. "They Find us before. Always find. Why? The human glanced at her, his expression firm. Because of what you carry. Because they do not see you as children. They see only what they want to use. But you are not theirs to take. She lowered her eyes, silent. But her small hand reached out and gripped his sleeve tightly. It was a simple gesture, but it carried trust and a silent plea, do not let go. The human guided the ship into darker paths, using tricks he had learned from years of traveling alone. He dimmed the signals, cut the engines at times, drifting like nothing more than a piece of rock among thousands. Still, the tension grew. Every time the scanners blinked, the girls huddled closer together, their fear rising again. Hours passed in this quiet chase. The stars wheeled silently, but the pressure never lifted. The human knew he could not run forever. The pursuers would grow closer, more persistent. He needed more than escape, he needed a way to protect them without endangering them further. That night, as the girls finally drifted into uneasy sleep in the back of the cabin, the human sat at the controls, his thoughts heavy. He could see their faces in the dim light, fragile, exhausted, yet clinging to him with silent faith. He thought of their gift, the strange power within them that had carried their cry across the stars. That gift had drawn him here, but it had also drawn the hunters. And in that moment, he realized the truth. The chase would not stop. Sooner or later, they would be found again. He could not hide them forever, but he could prepare. He could teach them to believe in their own strength, just as they had taught him to believe in his choice to stay. As he adjusted the course toward a quieter region of space, his resolve grew stronger. The galaxy might search for them, but they would not be so easy to take. Not while he still had breath, and not while they still had hope. In the silence, the ship glided into the shadows of distant stars, carrying a human who had chosen the impossible, and a group of alien children who believed in him more than they believed in their own kind. Far behind them, unseen in the darkness, the hunters continued their search. The chase had only begun, and the path ahead was uncertain. But in that fragile moment, inside that small ship, something powerful was forming, a bond that no scanner could detect, and no force in the galaxy could easily break. The ship drifted quietly through the stars. But inside, the air was heavy with emotions. The humans sat with the little alien girls, listening as they tried to explain their story. Their voices were soft, sometimes breaking, as if even speaking of the past was painful. They spoke of a place they once called home, filled with light and laughter, until shadows came and took it away. They had escaped, but they had lost almost everything. Their words were simple, but the weight behind them was deep. The human did not interrupt. He let them speak, even when their words stumbled or faded into silence. He knew they needed to share this, to let the truth be heard at least once. When one of the smallest girls held up a broken charm that had belonged to her mother, the human reached out, not to take it, but to gently touch her hand. She looked up at him with wide, tired eyes, and for the first time, a faint spark of trust flickered there. He promised them something he was not even sure he could give. He told them they were safe now. He told them they would not be alone again. The words felt heavy, but he meant them. And strangely, in that moment, he felt the weight of their trust settle on his shoulders, as if the universe itself had given him a task he could not walk away from. Later, as they rested, he found himself walking to the edge of the ship, staring out at the endless stars. Questions circled in his mind. Why had their cry reached him? Was it chance, or was it something greater, something meant to be? He had traveled through the galaxy many times, but he had never felt anything like this connection before. It was as if these children were not only asking for his help, but also leading him somewhere he was supposed to go. The next day, the ship's systems picked up faint signals. They were weak, almost hidden, but enough to show that something was searching. The alien girls grew quiet when he mentioned it. Their small hands gripped his sleeve, their eyes full of fear. He didn't need them to explain, he understood. Someone or something was looking for them, and it was close. Instead of fear, a strange calm settled inside him. He checked the ship, adjusted the routes, and set a new course. He told the girls not to worry, though he could see the doubt in their faces. But as the stars shifted around them and the ship moved into safer paths, their breathing eased a little. They still sat close to him, as if the sound of his voice was enough to hold away the darkness. That night, as they drifted in the quiet, one of the older girls finally asked the question that had been building in all of them. "Why are you helping us?" Her voice was small, almost uncertain, as if she feared the answer. The human thought for a moment. Then he smiled gently and said, "Because someone has to. And maybe I was meant to hear you." The girls didn't answer right away, but their eyes softened. They looked at him not with fear this time, but with something new hope. For them, that was enough. And for him, it was a promise he knew he could not break, no matter what the stars held next. The human woke to a soft sound, not from the ship's alarms, but from the alien girls whispering among themselves. They were huddled together, their small faces lit by the faint glow of the navigation lights. When they saw him awake, they grew quiet, as if caught doing something secret. But he only smiled, and the youngest one finally stepped forward. In her tiny hands, she held the broken charm again. She offered it to him, her eyes full of meaning. He shook his head gently. "It's yours," he said. But she shook hers back, more firmly this time. "For you. So you remember us." Her voice trembled, but her words carried strength. It was not just a gift, it was a bond. The human accepted it slowly, feeling the weight of it far more than its size. Outside, the stars shifted as the ship moved into a new sector. The scanners showed faint traces of a world nearby, one untouched, quiet, and safe. He pointed it out to them, and their tired eyes lit with something he had not seen before: wonder. The planet below shimmered with oceans and green fields, like a painting waiting for life to return. The girls leaned close to the glass, their breath fogging the surface, their hearts beating with hope. Could this be their new home? Could this be the place where their cry finally found peace? He guided the ship down gently, careful not to disturb the silence of the untouched land. As the engines slowed and the ship touched the ground, the air outside was clear and soft. The girls stepped out hesitantly, their feet pressing into the soil, their hands reaching for the sky. They stood in awe, as if the universe itself had finally given them a gift in return for their suffering. The human watched them, a quiet smile on his face. They ran, stumbled, and laughed, their laughter sounding as if it had been locked away for too long. Finally breaking free, he stood behind them, letting them have this moment. His promise had not been perfect, but it had brought them here, and that was enough. As the sun began to rise over the new horizon, one of the older girls walked back to him. Her eyes shone not with tears, but with something brighter. "We are safe now," she whispered. "Because of you." He nodded, feeling the warmth of the morning light and the broken charm still in his hand. He did not answer with words. He did not need to. The desperate cry that had reached across the stars had not only saved them, it had changed him. And now, on this quiet world, a new beginning unfolded. Not just for the alien girls, but for the human who chose to listen when no one else did.